Good evening and or morning or maybe hello regarding where you are in the world. Welcome to the 20th edition of LIVRESQ Empower Your Teaching, our webinar about LIVRESQ and teaching and education in general. My name is Raluca Bolocan and I'm here on behalf of the company Ascendia, a Romanian company who created LIVRESQ. This is one of our main products. And if this is your first time here, whether you're joining us on Zoom or you're watching this live on Facebook, or maybe you're watching a recording of this on YouTube or on Facebook later on, first of all, welcome. And second of all, you can always turn your microphone on if you're on Zoom, or you can write any questions or any comments in chat at any time. You can stop me while I show you things. And if you're watching a recording of this, of course, you can leave a comment and we will get back to you as soon as possible. So thank you very much for joining me. It's great to be here. Today or tonight, again, as well, depending on where you are, we are going to talk about interactive resources in LIVRESQ. So how we can add them and what LIVRESQ offers in terms of interactive resources. But I'll also show you sort of how to start creating your materials in LIVRESQ. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to change my screen share actually, because you're seeing the poster of the event at the moment. And I'm going to show you the LIVRESQ editor. Because once you create an account, whether it's a free account or it's a, sorry, just a sec, whether it's a free account or it's a paid account, you see the same thing. And this is basically the LIVRESQ editor. This is the homepage of the LIVRESQ editor, and we can see it's the homepage because it says so up here. This is where you start. So essentially, if you've never seen this tool before, what LIVRESQ allows you to do is build interactive digital lessons or any type of e-learning content, because what you can do in LIVRESQ is export materials in HTML5 and they're SCORM compliant, so you can integrate them in any LMS or most LMSs. They need to be SCORM compliant. Just a second, I need to set everything up. I want to also be able to see the chat at all times and the Facebook chat. If you see me looking on my right, that's where you are. And on my main monitor here on my main screen, I have the editor. So without further ado, we'll get straight into it. If I am going to discuss any feature that is premium, then I'll mention that. So if you need to pay for any of the features that I'll be discussing here, I will specify that. But essentially, you can do a lot of things and you can start creating and exporting projects or exporting lessons, even if you have a free account. This is what the builder looks like. We can click on Create New, and right off the bat, we can see what LIVRESQ is structured in, because we can create a new project, section, or resource. We can also import materials. So creating a new project allows us to create an entire lesson. That's why we sort of have this box here that represents the project. A section is like a page or a chapter in that lesson or that bit of content. Maybe it's an ebook, a digital ebook. And also resource is the actual content. We call resource the actual content, whether it's a video, it's an image, text, or any interactive resource that I'm going to show you tonight. Normally we begin by creating a project, but we can start from any of these levels, and of course also import a material if we want to, but we'll get to that probably in another meeting. So if I wanted to start a new project, a new material, I just click on Create New and then Project, and I have a few options to choose from. The first one is creating an empty 100% new project, nothing set, nothing preset, no content in it, completely empty. And this is what we're going to be working with tonight, because I want to really show you resources without any sort of distractions, like backgrounds and visual elements. I just want you to see and focus on the resources. But we can also start a project with artificial intelligence. This is an AI created project. So if we want to build, let's say, a lesson about a certain topic, you can input that topic and then you can start building the lesson. And it's a really, really useful tool. We've showcased it before during our meetings, and you can watch back those recordings. We will definitely get back to it. Right now, the lessons that you can generate in AI are only for premium accounts, and they kind of look the same because we work on the same template. The information, of course, is different, and the interactive resources that we suggest are different, but the main outlook of it is kind of similar between projects, but we will be releasing other templates in the future as well. And you can also start from one of the preset templates that the LIVRESQ offers you. You can browse all of them, look through them, and choose one that fits your liking. But I did say in the beginning that we're going to be working on a new project, completely empty. And if I click on new project here, it's already opened. It's called project number 2 for me. It's the second completely empty project I've created on this account. It's already open in the sections menu because we did say we work with projects that have sections. So it's like a box that contains one or more pages. And inside of these sections is where we find our resources. So in order for me to actually add resources and content, I will just double click this section. And now I'm in edit mode. It's a bit intimidating when you start with a completely, especially if you see LIVRESQ for the first time and everything is white and blank. But again, if you're just starting out, I would recommend you begin with a template or you try to create a lesson using artificial intelligence because it takes very little time and you already have elements there that you can play with. But this is essentially one of my sections, the section the section that was automatically created, completely empty. I have no content here, just a box of text. Because very important, the way the sections are divided, and I can see here that I'm in project number 2, I didn't rename it, in section number 1. Inside each section on each of these pages, which are HTML5, we work with 3 different elements. Rows, the green rectangle, gray rectangle here. Inside the row, we can have one or more cells. And inside the cell, we have the actual resource, the content, in this case, text. If I want to have multiple cells, I can go into structure here, and I can drag and drop another row, this time containing 1, 2, 3 cells. This essentially works on a bigger screen. You are able to sort of arrange elements in a column. If it's a smaller screen, then these columns, these cells, will will be displayed one after the other. I'll show you in a second. So right now we have the row that was automatically created, and I've just created a row with 1, 2, 3 cells. If I want more than 3 cells, I can duplicate one of them, because if I select any of these elements, whether it's a row, a cell, or my resource, I have this little menu that pops up here that allows me to do certain things like preview it, delete it, duplicate it, move it, select its parent, which essentially means that it takes me to the cell it's a part of, and then to the row it's a part of. So these are my elements, and if I want to duplicate one of my cells so that I don't have just 3 in a row, I can use the duplicate button, and now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I duplicated the cell twice. And these little blocks is the place where I add content. I want to add a text box. I go here under content, and I add the text box inside my cell. I want to add an image. I go here, I take an image, add it there. I want to add an audio, put it there. I want to add a video, I put it there. I don't need the last cell, so I'm just going to select it and delete it. And now I've purposefully selected these 4 resources because none of them are truly interactive. We're not going to work with them today, but the principle stays the same. I add something from the left to one of my empty cells or to my space. And then if I want to edit any of these elements, I just double click them. I want to add text here, I double click, and I have the text editing menu that pops up here. I want to change my image, I double click the image. And now it's a little bit different because I've entered an image changing or an image properties menu. I still know where I am because the platform tells me I'm in project number 2, section number 1. I'm editing image number 1. I have a button here that allows me to change the image. I can edit the image and so on, and a lot of other options. If I want to go back, I'll just click section number 1 and I'm back to where I was. It works the same for the audio, and it works the same for the video, where again, I have the change video option, and I can do a number of different things. We can also generate voices in all languages in LIVRESQ if you want to do that. For the assistant, again, we have a previous webinar where we discussed this in detail. But essentially, this is how it works. These are the main principles, and these are resources that are not interactive. So we have the text and the image, 100% not interactive resources, but very necessary in any type of digital content. We always work with text and images. And then we have audio and video, which are media resources, basically. You can add videos from YouTube or from other video sharing platforms. You can insert MP3s, record your own voice, and do a number of different things. But the only way to interact with these two resources is just to click play and then listen. So not 100% interactive. But the purpose of tonight is to talk about interactive resources. And I'm going to show you the native or the LIVRESQ type resources, because you can also add applications to LIVRESQ. And we have a previous webinar about that, but if you want, we can talk about that again, because we know that teachers and educators all around the world use different types of apps that they love, like learning apps. For some reason, I can't think of any other examples, even Google Forms. And you can integrate these lessons straight into these applications straight into LIVRESQ, and we've showcased this. It's really, really useful. But we also have a few things that you can add straight from LIVRESQ without having to worry about importing and creating something somewhere else. So you can do it here. The only one I'm going to skip is the quiz, because you can do a lot of things with the quizzes in LIVRESQ, and we have an entire sort of webinar dedicated to that. And that's why I'm only going to talk about the rest of them and show you how they work. So for that, I'm just going to drag and drop a row with 2 cells this time. So we can place resources, one on the left and one on the right. I have 2 cells now. I haven't shown you what happens on a smaller screen, because I did say that they will come one under the other. So I can simulate. I can see what my students are going to see if they access my lesson on a phone, for instance. The easy way to do that is to simulate a dynamic screen, which is done here near the preview button. We have this that lets us simulate a phone, for instance, in portrait mode. And now I'm able to see what the cells will look like. I still have my row, I still have my cells, but instead of them being one next to each other, because my screen is smaller, I can now see them one under the other. The reason why we do that is because we don't want you to worry about scaling content, like in a PDF or a PowerPoint, for instance, where if you're watching or if you're looking at that content on a very small screen, you need to zoom in, you need to move it around. This, the content you create is responsive, which means that it automatically adapts to the screen size that the user is using to view the material. So we have another row with 2 cells, which I added from the left-hand side. And here we're going to add the first interactive resource, which is a gallery. In order to add a gallery, I'll take the gallery from the content and move it into my cell. Now this time, and for these as well, we have this little bar here that tells us where we can write a title. And we can say the place where we write a title is here, because we looked at sort of how we add things from the left-hand side. This is where the work happens. This is where the magic happens, where our content is. Here, you saw that we can see where we are inside our project, inside our lesson. We didn't really talk about this bar that allows you to do a lot of things, but we did see the view mode and the simulating a screen mode. But on the right-hand side, we have properties. So regarding which, according to which element, to the element that I select, for instance, I select this row, on the right-hand side, LIVRESQ will display the properties for that row. I know it's a row because it's a gray rectangle. I know this is a cell because it's orange, and I can see its properties here. For my gallery, I have the properties of the gallery here. These are settings that I can do for that resource. I can give it a title for the bar up there. I can say gallery. and now it's changed. I can introduce it with an effect. This is similar to PowerPoint. For instance, I want it to appear in my lesson like this. Maybe I want to add a background color, a border. We won't really get into these elements too much. I can also hide my bar if I don't need it. I have an option here. But in order to edit the actual content, it's the same principle. We will double click that. And now I'm in editing mode. I know I'm in project number 2, section number 1, and I'm editing gallery number 1. And here you can see that it's not just one image, like we saw in the case of the image resource, but we have 3 different images. Image number 1, image number 2, and image number 3, which means that the way this will work, and I'll go into view mode just to show you what a gallery sort of works, how the gallery sort of works in LIVRESQ. The student will see a collection of images that he can either access by clicking on the arrows or just slide through. I can slide through my images. Hold on, I'm not holding the click properly. That's why I can't do this. So I can just slide through my images, which means that essentially what I have to do when I edit this content is replace each of these images. The first one, I can use the same button, the Change Image button, which offers me 2 options. I can either upload a file from my computer or use a stock photo. The stock photo option allows you to choose to search actually into 3 stock photo archives on the internet. I'll show you in a bit. If I click on stock photo, I have 3 sources: Pixabay, Pexels, and Unsplash. I can search for a keyword. I can also change the direction of the results. This is a nice to have feature. And then I get pages and pages. This is how I navigate between the pages of results. So for instance, I have 14,000 results in Pixabay for the word book. And then if I see an image that I like, I can put my mouse over it, and then this button on the left-hand side appears with the blue hand, the blue clicking sign. I can click this and select the size of the image I want to use. Now, because this is a gallery and everything will scale according to one image, it would be best practice to choose images of similar sizes. So I chose this random picture of a book. I can also add a description to it or alternative text if you want to make everything accessible. Image number 2, if I go into stock photos again, I will look for something similar in size. I'll just select the second picture. I know it's got the same size, and maybe I don't need image number 3. I just want 2 images in my gallery. Then I can just click remove element here. And now I have 2 images. If I want to add another picture, I can click on the blue button here that says add new element. And now I can add an extra picture. Delete and add new element. Now, alternative text, I can explain. It's basically the text that people who are visually impaired would listen to. So a description of the image. There's an entire science on how to write these that are for them to be efficient and truly useful. We also have an image editor that allows you to do a couple of basic but useful things. You can change the filter, you can crop the image, you can flip it, you can rotate it, you can draw on it. This is very useful, especially for digital lessons. You can add shapes, text, stickers. Stickers even allows you to add another image to it from your computer or from a stock photo, and you can resize the image. So basically a basic image editor, but still very useful because you can do it straight from LIVRESQ instead of going to another editor, saving your picture, and then uploading it. So you can also do that, and you can do it for each picture. And then we have a button that says add description. So maybe I want to add a description. This, as opposed to the alternative text, will be displayed on the screen. So I can say old book. And this is the description that will be displayed below this image. And then I can add a description to this image as well and say newer book. I added a full stop here, and then I'm going to add a full stop in the second one as well. And then we have two other options besides adding a new element. Add a description, and this adds a description for the entire gallery. This will be displayed regardless of what picture we're going through. Gallery of books. And the help message I'm only going to display once is meant to help to give an instruction to the student or to the whoever's going through the e-learning through the content to tell them what to do in case they get stuck. And I'll write the help message and I'll show you what it looks like and what it's displayed like in the lesson. So let's see, click on the arrows to navigate through the gallery. This was my help message. Now, if I go back to my section, instead of previewing my gallery from here, I'm going to go back to my section. And now on my bar, I have a little question mark. If I go into view mode for my entire section from up here, you saw that even the effect has now the pop-up that I added is now displayed. I have my resources here, and now my gallery is interactive. This is my description of the entire gallery. This is my description of the first picture. And in case I'm confused and I don't know what to do, I have this little question mark. I can go with my mouse over it, with my cursor over it, and it will tell me what to do. That's the help message. That's where it's displayed. If I click on the arrows, then I'm able to navigate through the gallery. Look at how the description below each image changes. And this essentially marks the fact that I completed my interaction with the gallery. And if you leave these bars on, you'll see that whenever you finish interacting with an element, whether it's an audio, a video, or any other interactive element in LIVRESQ, a green circle will appear just to signify to the user, to the learner, that they've finished interacting with that content. Now to go back into edit mode, I will click again on the view mode, and now we're back into viewing mode. This was the gallery. If you have any questions, please stop me or please write them in chat. I'm here to answer your questions. I hope you find this useful. It's cool to sort of be able to hide multiple images and also give a different description. We use LIVRESQ to create corporate courses, and sometimes we use a gallery to show, for instance, processes, multiple steps in a process. And we add minimal changes to the image just so that the person sees the entire process. Another resource, interactive resource that was very recently, I think less than 2 weeks ago, added to LIVRESQ is the matrix. The matrix is essentially a crossword puzzle. We will probably change its name quite soon. And what this allows you to do, again, it works in the same way. We have a title. In order to edit it, we'll double click on it. And now we can add words and hints. Hints are essentially the explanations for each word. And let's see, I want the solution. The solution is displayed vertically here. Let's say I want my solution to be cat, which means I need to add 3 words. The first one containing the word C, the second one containing the word A, the letter C, and the letter T. And each of them needs to have a little definition. Let's see, maybe I want to add, I must admit that I prepared this beforehand and I have a little cheat sheet on my right-hand side. Let's say camel, bear, and then I need another word, obviously, because my solution, it even tells me that something is wrong. This means that I have a longer solution. I have more letters here than words that will be displayed one under the other. So I need to add another element, and it won't be word, it will be turtle. And I chose this on purpose because it contains the letter T twice in turtle. So T here and T here. So what does LIVRESQ do? This is where I would write the explanations. I can delete this text and just define camel, or describe actually. Description. It's essentially the hint. I won't be playing around with this too much. The second option is for me to align my answer. So if I click align, it will automatically align my answers with the words that I've given it according to what the solution is. Now, if I don't want it to take into consideration the first T, and I wanted to take into consideration the second T, I can just click on it, and it will realign according to what I want it to be. First one, second one, and it can do that with any of these words. Now, there are a few other options. First of all, we can choose besides these graphical ones that coincide for all resources, but we have a few matrix, a few crossword puzzle specific ones. I misspelled description. Just a sec. There we go. First of all, where we add these definitions, these hints, so they can be displayed at the bottom, they can be displayed at the top, or we can remove the hints altogether. Let's leave them at the bottom for now. Then we can show index numbers 1, 2, 3. If I uncheck this, they will be hidden. I can enable help, and I'll show you, I'll check this and I'll show you in a second what this means. And ignoring diacritics means that I don't need special characters in order for the crossword to be considered correct. So if I go into view mode, this is essentially my crossword puzzle. The student can complete it using their keyboard. Because I've enabled help, I can also cheat a little bit. So only do this at your own risk, which means that I can click on 1 on the number and it will autocomplete for me. Or I can just use my keyboard to fill in my crossword puzzle. If I want to change the position to top, this is what it looks like. So simple, but very useful, and very quick to design. I mean, the most effort that goes into creating a crossword puzzle is sort of trying to find the words and their descriptions, because the way you can add it straight to your lesson is very, very easy, like a little game, a little puzzle for your students. All right, moving on, we already have 2 of our interactive resources. Let's add another row with 2 cells. I like this symmetry. And talk about 2 ways in which we can present text or information that can be displayed with a sort of with a twist, more interactively, because a lot of the times in e-learning and in learning in general, we work with texts and images, but a lot of text. So we've created, or we've added, 2 interactive resources that allow us to add text in a more creative, interactive manner. The first one is the accordion, and we can find it here. And the accordion works very simply. When you click a title, more information is displayed. I can just write a title here. Now I know what it is. And in order to edit it, we will double click. And here you can see your items, 1, 2, 3. They each have 2 components, a title and content. When I click the title, the content will be displayed, and they can be open multiple at the same time. So all of my items can be open at the same time, or I can close them and open another one. Again, I did not mention this for the matrix. We can still, for all resources, we can add a help message and we can add a description. The same for the accordion. If you want to add a description for it, you can. Now, when I click to edit each of these elements, whether the title or the content, I have my text editing menu, which allows me not only to add and edit text, but it also allows me to add images. So what I can do is write a text here and add an image in the content. So for instance, let's say cat. And then in the content, if I go and delete what's here, I can go choose add image, use stock photo. I can search for a cat, a picture of a cat. Always a very difficult choice, but let's just go with the first one. So I didn't add it, I didn't add the image as a separate image resource. I added it inside a text resource inside my accordion. But this picture is a bit big, even though I selected the smallest image that was available in the stock photos. In order to change its size, I'll go into Advanced, and here I can change its pixel size. So I still select my image, and I have this whole menu here. And this allows me to change the size. I want the height to be around 200 pixels. It's kept the aspect ratio because this is checked, and essentially just resized my photo so that it makes sense inside my lesson. For the second title, maybe we want to add a picture of a dog, but this can also be more text. I've also seen it used quite a bit about by teachers, where in the title they have a question that they ask the class, and then when a few students have tried to answer that question, maybe a definition, they click on the title and reveal the actual definition. Let's make it fun. We'll add a picture of a dog this time. So we'll search for dog. Let's see. I was a bit biased. I didn't go with the first one. I'll keep the 200 pixels ratio. They kind of look the same size. I told you I liked symmetry. Now I can fill in this one, or I can remove the item. If I want to add multiple items, I can again use the blue button that says add item. And I can keep adding file or items to my accordion. Let's see what it looks like. And I can preview it from here, but I want you to see it inside the lesson, especially since we've started with a blank canvas. So I'm going to go into view mode, and I have my accordion here. I can click on the first title, or on the first plus sign, and I have the picture of the cat. I can click on the second sign and I have the picture of a dog. This is how it works. You can add multiple things here. You can add text. It's a great way to make sure that, or to sort of try to make sure that your students read the text or find the information, do something with the information. Interactivity is very important to younger generations, but to us as well. Because if we're stuck listening to something, or if we're stuck reading something, our attention span is not really what it used to be, and it really helps to have to do something, to discover something, and this is exactly how the accordion works. Similar to the accordion, we have the tabs. Now, in order to add a tabs resource, we can go here under content, take it, and add it to my desired place inside my lesson. And this one is a tabs. It works exactly in the same way as a browser tabs works. I did not write it with a capital letter. If I want to edit it, I will double click my resource. And again, I have 3 items. I have a title and I have content. The difference is that I always have one of them is always open, just like in a browser. If you close all of them, you close the browser. So here, both of my items are closed, but here my first item is automatically open. I will just use text for this one. Tab 1, content for tab 1, tab 2, content for tab 2, and then tab 3 with content, for tab 3. So if I go back into my section, you see that tab 3 is hidden under this arrow here. It's still discoverable, but since I don't have a lot of space inside my cell, it's a little bit hidden. I'll show you how it works in a second. So if I go into view mode, I have all the resources I added. I have my accordion. I have my tabs here. If I want to see the third tab, it's here. Now it's all green. I know that I finished interacting with the resource. I can exit view mode by clicking on the eye up here again. If I maybe add a row with one cell and put my tabs here, I can now see all of them. It was just a matter of spacing, so that's why you couldn't see them. I can now delete this cell. By the way, what I didn't show you about these 3 components rows, cells, and resources is that you can resize the percentage of space that a cell occupies on a row. It's a very complicated sentence for me to say, which essentially means, I'll show you, that's the easiest way to go about it. If I use this little square, this little orange square, if I take my mouse over it and I click it, I can change how much of the row my cell occupies, and I have the percentage there. It will show me the percentage on the cell that I've selected. If I select this other cell, the percentage will be displayed on the left, on the one that I've selected. So if you want space, for instance, if you want a resource, if you want to create a button, which I won't show today, maybe I would just want to leave some space here, and I can add a text resource here, and then it's in the middle. Or add multiple cells according to how I want to space everything. But remember that on a phone, if you leave a blank cell somewhere, that blank cell will be a little bit of a blank space inside your lesson. All right, so now we have one resource left, and again, you can do a lot more things. So you can add an application, you can embed applications from other places. So this essentially allows you multiple possibilities. And you can also guide the student, which you can do with barriers and avatars or messages. Things I won't go into today, so I don't overcomplicate things. It's not really all, is what I'm trying to say, but I just wanted to show you how simply you can add some interactive ways, or you can add content interactively so that you can make it more interesting for your learners or your students. So the last interactive resource is also the most complex one. Not complicated, but complex. It's called hotspots. If I take my hotspots resource, and I actually, for the purpose of showing you how easy it is to move things around, I'm going to move this around because I want it to occupy its own space. So I'm going to add another row with a single cell, move my hotspots here, and then delete my cell here so we don't leave an empty random space. This is my hotspots. I'm going to change the title on the bar. And then once I double click it, I can edit it. And a hotspots has a few elements, two actually. A background image and markers, one or multiple markers according to what you need them to do. If we preview this, just this row, essentially you can point to a part of an image, and then once the student clicks either that part of the image or the title of the part you're pointing to, they can find out more. This is one of the ways to use it. So if I go back into editing mode, I can change this image, and then I can add my markers and my content. In order to change this image, I need to select it. This time it's a little bit different because we're going to be working with this side a lot. So I already have an image, I can delete it, but the easiest way is to change it. And once I've selected the image, I select the marker by clicking here, and I select the image by clicking on the image. I have access to this button that says Change Image. And again, the two options, Upload or Stock Photo. Let's keep our animal pets theme, but maybe add a different type of picture. I don't want a very large image. Medium is fine. It's appeared up here, but I can resize it using this little square. This time it's blue. So I can resize it and move it according to where I need to place it. And then if I click on my marker, you'll see that we have three components. So first of all, we have the marker, all of it. Now I can access its properties, change its contents, change its title, whatever I need to do. But you also have a focal point with a center in it. So the focal point is essentially defining a place on the image where the student can click and the label will open. So if I want, for instance, to point to the dog's paws, maybe all of its paws, then I can select this as my point of interest, as my focal point, sorry. And the center of the hit zone can be centered to this little rectangle or whatever shape I end up with, maybe a square or rectangle, not that many possibilities. Or I can uncheck this and place my focal point wherever I need it to be. So maybe I'll write about paws. So I will place my focal point on a paw, but I want the student to also be able to click on this paw and still open the label. The label I can move as well, according to where I need it to be. So for the label itself, we need to write a title, paws or paw, and some contents. We have the title of the label here and the content below. And now if we go into view mode just for this resource, we use the eye up here. If I click on any of the paws, my label will open. I exited view mode by clicking on the eye again. If I want to move it around to maybe make it even smaller, I can place it around. If I want to add another one, I have two options. The easiest one is to duplicate the one that I've already added, selecting the marker and using duplicate and then moving it around. Or I can add a marker by dragging and dropping it from here. This allows me to also add text or a rectangle, but it's easier to work with it like this. Maybe I want to create another label for the dog's ears, but I won't really be able to catch both ears, so let's just work with one. I'm also moving my focal point to the center of the hit zone because this is basically the center of my hit zone, and this time I will say ears, details about the dog's ears. Whatever you want to add here. Of course, you can add an image. It doesn't really make sense, though, to add an image here. And this looks like the first one. Now I click the ear. I can see details. I click on the title, or I click on the side, on the paws themselves, and it opens the hotspots. These are all resources that are available for free. So they're not for premium accounts only. You can use them 100% if you create an account right now. There is one other thing that I want to show you about hotspots though, because this is one way to use it. This is one way to display it. If we click on anything that doesn't contain on a part of the screen that doesn't contain an element, so not on an image and not on a marker, but here maybe, we have access to the properties for the entire hotspots, for the entire resource. And here, the last option asks us about the layout. So we can go with classic, this is classic, or minimalist. If I click on minimalist, we now only have two dots here. The whole point of interest, everything changed. If I go back to my section to preview this, I'll go into classical preview with all the resources. What happens now is that if I click on a hotspot, the details are displayed below. It's a little bit more minimalistic because that's what the name says as well. Slightly more elegant, if you will, but it depends on what you need it for, because maybe sometimes you want the student to see the label. It's really important to have that aspect. If we exit view mode and we go back into the drawing board, back into the editing mode, I just want to show you one more thing, and we'll go back for classic this time, because we always get this question about changing the colors of the hotspots of the labels themselves. And you can do this by not selecting any of these elements, and you can choose a theme here. Either configure one yourself or choose one that's pre-made. We generally don't encourage this because inherit means that it will take the theme that the entirety of the lesson is created on. So we don't necessarily encourage you to do this. But if you want to change the color of each label, this is how it works. I can make them blue. And if I go back, my labels are blue. But again, it doesn't really make a lot of sense because everything else is green. So I didn't really keep in with the theme, but it depends on what you need, essentially. All right. So these are interactive resources, interactive ways in which you can present and introduce content to your students in LIVRESQ. Again, not including the fact that you can add almost any other app and you can embed it straight to your lessons. I'd like to know if there are any questions either on Zoom or on Facebook or any comments. I'm excited to answer them. Again, if you're watching a recording of this, leave your comment below on YouTube and on Facebook as well. I guess it's below, but you can write your comment in the chat and we will see it and get back to you as soon as possible. Okay, so I guess no questions. Thank you very much for joining me. I will see you again. So we host this meeting. I host this meeting once every 2 weeks on Thursdays at 6 p.m. CET. Do you have an example to create call to action? When you say call to action, do you mean like a button or asking the student to do something? This is for me a very marketing term, so I'm curious. For instance, an instruction, is that what you mean for one of the interactive resources? Button. Okay. So in order to create a button, we need to use one of the two non-interactive resources in LIVRESQ. And we only have two. So in non-interactive means that if we click on them, nothing happens, which means that LIVRESQ allows us to make something happen if we click on them. I have a text here. I'll say button. Okay, this is what it looks like. If I select my resource, under properties for my text, I have action here, which allows me to do one of three things. I can either launch a resource, which means that if I have a resource that's saved in my resources here, if I had a resource here instead of just projects, then I would be able to launch it using this button. Hold on. Follow a bookmark, which allows me to send the learner to another part of the lesson because bookmarks are the little stars here. And follow a link allows me to add a link, maybe livres.com. We have this little launcher button here if you want it to be obviously a button, but we can also hide this. So if we go into view mode now, if I click on this, the official website for LIVRESQ pops up. In order to use this as a link to a bookmark, I would need to, for instance, add a bookmark to my tabs. I won't get into editing bookmarks too much. Okay, so I'll go into follow bookmark, go into tabs, and now if I preview my section, if I click on the button, it will take me straight to my tabs. But you can do this across sections, and it's actually one of the ways we can navigate between sections. So at the end of section number 1, you have a button that leads the user to the first bookmark in section number 2, and so on. So this is how essentially we've created interactivity. Launching a resource, again, would require that we had a resource saved here, and I think I do. So just give me one moment. Let's wait for it to load, not in templates, but in my resources. Here we go. We have, this is quiz in Romanian. We have a quiz. I selected insert, and I can edit this quiz. I won't. I can select how much of the screen it will take up. But now, since I've selected one of the resources inside my resources menu, I can go into view mode. And if I click on the link here, my resource pops up. That's why at the beginning, if I go into home, I can create resources. I can create them here, and I can make them pop up in different parts of lessons. Okay, Let's go back to my project. I'll exit view mode. These are the three options. So if I have a non-interactive item, whether a text or an image, I can make it launch a resource, follow a bookmark. Launch a resource means launching a pop-up of a resource. Follow a bookmark in order to send the user to another part of my lesson, and follow a link, a website, or anything outside of your lesson that you want the student to be able to click and open that page. And for images, we have the same menu. Action, launch resource, follow bookmark, follow link. I can do the tabs here. So view mode. I jinxed it. There we go. I had a little bit of an internet problem, probably. If you see an error like that, where it said that it wasn't able to save, then the best thing to do is refresh your page, because it may be the internet glitched a little bit, or maybe something happened and you lost your connection for a little bit. LIVRESQ saves everything automatically. In case it can't save, like it did back there, it tells you I can't save, refresh, stop doing what you're doing because I won't be able to save your progress. I'll go into view mode. My first button launches my resource. This is a Romanian quiz. My second button, which was placed on the image, it's also added the icon here that I can hide, will take me to tabs, but I could have added maybe a link to the outside. I hope this answers your question. To hide this launcher button, I can say hide, or I can change its position to the top, to the left, to the right, or to place it back into the center by clicking restore, or hiding it altogether. But then I would need to make it very clear that that image is a button. So maybe showing somehow that it's a button. Essentially, this is why we have the launcher button, so that it becomes clear to the user that we have a button there. All right. I hope that answered your question, but let me know if it didn't. If you have any other questions, or you need any other information, any more information about LIVRESQ, I'm here. But again, you can write to us on Facebook, or you can write us an email at help@livresq.com at any time, and we answer as fast as possible. And we can meet again in 2 weeks' time on Thursday. Thank you so much, and have a great whatever time of the day it is where you live. It was a real honor to be here, and I really enjoyed my time. I hope you did too, and you found this information useful. Thank you so much.